All right, so let's just cut the crap and dive right into this whole Notre Dame shit show. Remember that inferno back in 19? The one that nearly turned the whole damn cathedral to ash?
Oh, yeah?
For 5 years, a shitload of cash, and a whole flock of pissed-off pigeons later. Guess what? It's back! Macron's strutting around like he's single-handedly rebuilt the damn thing, and they've got a guest list for the reopening that reads like a who's who of global bigwigs. The whole thing's got enough pomp and circumstance to make a saint puke.
Yeah, it was quite the spectacle, wasn't it? December 7th, 2024, Paris is buzzing. You've got Macron there looking smug as hell. But get this, Trump shows up, fresh off his latest election win. The Donald himself decides to grace the event with his presence.
Oh, you've got to be shitting me.
Talk about a power move.
What a dick. It's like a goddamn royal rumble of egos. You've got Prince William representing the UK, the King and Queen of Belgium, even the Prince of Monaco. Hell, even King Harold of Norway sent his wife. Probably figured counting his oil money was more important.
Well, yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? You've got all these political heavy hitters all vying for attention, but this was also a huge deal for the Catholic Church. Almost 170 bishops were there, including Cardinal Dolan from the U.S.
Yeah, but where the hell was the Pope in all this? Dude sends a message read by some flinky. Talk about a missed photo op. Turns out he was busy prepping for a trip to Corsica. Guess saving souls takes a backseat to island hopping.
Well, to be fair, the Pope's schedule is pretty packed. But yeah, you're right. It's definitely interesting that he chose not to attend this particular event.
Yeah.
Especially given its significance for the Catholic world.
Right. Okay, so we've got this bizarre mix of global politics and religious fervor. But what actually went down inside this newly renovated cathedral? Paint us a picture.
Okay, so picture this. The doors swing open, and you've got this choir belting out psalms. Macron's up there giving a speech about the resilience of France. Shocker, I know.
What a load of bullshit.
And they've got this all-star lineup of musicians providing the soundtrack. Lang Lang on the piano, Yo-Yo Ma on the cello.
Wait, they had Lang Lang and Yo-Yo Ma playing at a church. Talk about mixing high culture with the holy rollers.
Yeah, they did. And it doesn't stop there. They even had Pharrell Williams performing.
Pharrell? Seriously, what the hell was he doing there? Singing Happy while they light the incense?
Your guess is as good as mine. But here's another curveball for you. Remember Jean-Charles de Castelbajac? That designer known for his wacky Popeye sweaters?
Oh yeah, that guy.
Well, he designed the priests' outfits for the occasion.
You're shitting me. Priests rocking Popeye sweaters. That's hilarious. Talk about a fashion statement.
It was definitely a choice. But amidst all this spectacle and celebrity, let's not forget the real heroes of this whole thing. The firefighters who risked their necks to save the damn building, and the army of craftspeople who spent years putting it back together.
Right. Mad respect for those folks. They're the ones who deserve the standing ovation, not these preening politicians and celebrities.
Absolutely. Their dedication and skill were phenomenal. They used traditional techniques and materials wherever possible, painstakingly restoring the cathedral to its former glory.
Right. Okay, so they've got the place looking all shiny and new. But what exactly did they fix? What's different now compared to before the fire?
Well, the spire's back, an exact replica of the old one.
So same old spire, just new wood. Yeah, it seems kind of uninspired, doesn't it? Couldn't they have at least jazzed it up a bit? Maybe added a disco ball or something?
Not quite. They did incorporate some modern technology, like sensors to monitor the wood's health. But visually, yeah, it's pretty much the same. As for the roof, they used oak again, just like the original, sourced from all over France.
Oak. Isn't that, like, flammable as fuck? It burned down once already.
Yeah.
Are these guys just asking for a repeat performance?
Well, they claim the new structure is far more fire resistant. They've installed state-of-the-art sprinkler systems and fire breaks this time around. And you know those gargoyles everyone loves?
Yeah. What about those creepy little bastards?
They're not just for decoration anymore. Some of them are actually disguised water cannons.
Gargoyle water cannons.
Mhm.
Okay, that's kind of badass. I
Yeah.
take back what I said about them being uninspired. But what about the inside? Did they spruce up the joint a bit?
They did. The interior got a serious cleaning, all that smoke and soot gone. They even restored some of the stained glass windows. But here's where it gets interesting. They also made some pretty controversial additions.
Oh, I love a good controversy. Spill the tea. What did they do?
They added contemporary art installations, abstract sculptures, light displays, that sort of thing. Some people are calling it sacrilege. Others say it's a way to bring the cathedral into the 21st century.
So they've got this medieval cathedral with modern art slapped right in the middle of it. Talk about an identity crisis. What the hell were they thinking?
Beats me. Maybe they thought it would attract a younger crowd. Who knows with these art snobs? They also installed new lighting and sound systems. Apparently, they're going to use the cathedral for concerts and other events now.
Concerts in Notre Dame. That just feels wrong. It's a goddamn church, not a concert hall. Next thing you know, they'll be hosting rave parties in there.
Who knows? Maybe they will. Stranger things have happened. But here's something to consider. With all these modern additions, is it really the same Notre Dame? Or is it something new entirely?
Damn, that's a good question. It's like they Frankenstein the place.
Hmm.
A little bit old, a little bit new, a little bit sacred, a little bit, well, weird.
Yeah, it's a fascinating dilemma, isn't it? When you're dealing with a historical structure like Notre Dame, you're constantly walking this tightrope between preservation and modernization. Do you try to keep things exactly as they were? Or do you allow the past to evolve and change with us?
Yeah, it's like trying to shove a square peg into a round hole. You're either going to break the peg or stretch the hole so much it's unrecognizable. So where do you land on this whole debate? Are they screwing up Notre Dame by adding all this modern crap? Or are they just trying to keep it relevant?
Well, it's tough to say. On one hand, I get the desire to preserve the past. Notre Dame is a symbol of French history and culture. It stood for centuries, witnessed revolutions, wars, plagues. It's a reminder of something bigger than ourselves.
Right. It's like a giant middle finger to time and all the shit it's thrown at us. But at the same time, the world's changing, people are changing. Maybe they need to update the damn thing to keep people interested.
Exactly. And I think that's what they're trying to do with these modern additions. They want to make Notre Dame a space that speaks to contemporary audiences, that engages with current artistic trends.
But is that really respecting the building's history? Or just slapping a fresh coat of paint on a crumbling facade?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And there's no easy answer. I think it depends on how these modern elements are integrated, how they dialogue with the existing structure.
All right, so let's talk about this modern art they've shoved in there. Abstract sculptures, light shows. Yeah. It sounds more like something you'd find in a trendy art gallery, not a goddamn cathedral.
I know, right? It's definitely a bold move. And it's been incredibly divisive. Some people are praising it as a brilliant way to bridge the gap between the past and the present. Others are calling it a desecration, a betrayal of the cathedral's sacred character.
So basically, they've pissed off everyone equally. That's a special kind of talent. But seriously, what was their thought process here? Why add modern art to a place that's already overflowing with history and beauty?
Well, it's not like they haven't tried this before. Churches and cathedrals have always been spaces for artistic expression. Think about the stained glass windows, the sculptures, the paintings. They were all considered cutting edge in their time.
Right, but that was back when people actually knew how to make beautiful things. Nowadays, it's all abstract blobs and neon lights.
That's a bit harsh, don't you think? There's plenty of great modern art out there. And I think it's important to remember that art is subjective. What one person finds beautiful, another might find repulsive.
True enough. I guess beauty's in the eye of the beholder and all that jazz. But I'm still not convinced about this modern art in Notre Dame. It just feels out of place, like putting a Ferrari engine in a Model T Ford.
I can see your point. But let's not forget that Notre Dame itself is a product of its time. It was built in the Middle Ages using the latest architectural techniques and materials available back then. And over the centuries, it's undergone numerous restorations and modifications.
So they've been messing with this thing for centuries.
Pretty much. The Notre Dame we see today is not the same building that was constructed in the 12th century. It's been shaped and reshaped by time, by history, by the people who've cared for it.
So you're saying this whole modernization thing is just part of the natural evolution of the building?
In a way, yes. It's a reflection of our current cultural values, our artistic sensibilities, and whether we like it or not, it's going to continue to evolve and change in the years to come.
All right, so they've got this Frankenstein cathedral with a mix of old and new, sacred and profane. What's the overall reaction been like? Are people digging it? Or are they calling for the heads of the people responsible for this art massacre?
It's been a mixed bag, to say the least. Some people are absolutely thrilled with the renovations. They see it as a symbol of France's resilience, a testament to its ability to embrace both its past and its future.
Right, because nothing says resilience like adding a disco ball to a centuries-old cathedral.
I'll admit, the disco ball might be a bit much, but you get the idea.
All right, I'll bite. What about the folks who aren't so happy with this whole modern makeover? What are they bitching about?
Well, the main complaint is that it's disrespectful to the building's history and religious significance. They argue that Notre Dame should be preserved as a sacred space, not turned into some kind of trendy art gallery.
I get that. It's like walking into your grandma's house and finding out she's turned it into a rave club. It just feels wrong.
Exactly. It's a jarring juxtaposition. And some people feel like this modernization is erasing the cathedral's historical and spiritual significance.
So you got the folks who love it, the folks who hate it, and probably a whole bunch of folks who are just confused as hell. Talk about a divisive project.
It certainly is, but I think that's part of what makes it so fascinating. It raises all these important questions about how we view history, how we preserve our cultural heritage, and how we adapt to a changing world.
Yeah, it's more than just slapping some new gargoyles on a roof. It's a whole philosophical debate wrapped up in a giant stone building.
Exactly, and I think it's a debate that's going to continue for years to come.
All right, we've talked about the renovations, the controversy, the clash between old and new, but there's another element to this whole Notre Dame saga that we haven't really touched on, the political dimension.
Ah, yes, the political circus. Can't forget that.
Exactly. This wasn't just about restoring a building. It was about projecting an image, making a statement. Macron using it to boost his political capital. Trump trying to steal the spotlight.
It was a fascinating display of political maneuvering, wasn't it?
Totally. So let's break down the political theater surrounding this whole Notre Dame reopening. What were the main players trying to achieve? What messages were they sending?
Well, for Macron, it was all about projecting an image of French strength and resilience. Remember, this fire happened on his watch, and it was a huge blow to national pride.
Right. It's like the whole country was having a collective existential crisis. So Macron swoops in to save the day like some kind of goddamn superhero.
Pretty much. The reopening of Notre Dame was a chance for him to show the world that France was back on its feet, that it hadn't been defeated by this tragedy.
And what about Trump? What was his angle?
Well, Trump being Trump, he saw it as an opportunity to insert himself into the global spotlight. And let's be honest, he's pretty good at that.
He's a master at grabbing attention, that's for sure. Even if it means crashing someone else's party.
Exactly. His presence at the reopening was a way for him to project American power and influence on the world stage. And of course, it didn't hurt that it pissed off Macron.
Right, because what's a global event without a little bit of Trumpian drama to spice things up?
It wouldn't be the same, would it?
Okay, so we've got Macron playing the hero, Trump playing the disruptor. What about the rest of the global elite who showed up for this spectacle? What were they hoping to gain?
Well, for many of them, it was simply a matter of showing solidarity with France. It was a way to demonstrate their support for the country and its cultural heritage.
Right, because nothing says, I care about French culture, like attending a lavish ceremony and then jetting off to your private island.
Cynical, but fair. But for others, it was also a chance to network, to forge alliances, to advance their own political and economic agendas.
The good old game of international diplomacy. Scratch my back, I'll scratch yours.
Exactly. And Notre Dame provided the perfect backdrop for this kind of behind-the-scenes maneuvering.
So basically, this whole Notre Dame reopening was a giant political chess match with everyone trying to outmaneuver each other.
That's one way to look at it. But I think it's also important to remember that Notre Dame holds a special place in the hearts of many people around the world. And for some, this reopening was simply a moment of joy, a celebration of the human spirit's ability to overcome adversity.
Okay, so it wasn't all just political posturing and ego tripping.
Not at all. I think there was a genuine sense of hope and optimism in the air that day. And for many, it was a reminder that even in the face of tragedy, we can rebuild and move forward.
All right, I'll give you that. It's hard to be completely cynical when you're standing in front of a goddamn masterpiece like Notre Dame.
Exactly. There's a certain magic to it, a certain power that transcends politics and ideology.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about the renovations, the controversy, the political theater. But what's the bottom line? What does this whole Notre Dame saga tell us about the world we live in?
That's a big question. But I think it speaks to our enduring fascination with history, with beauty, with the things that connect us to something larger than ourselves.
So in a world that's increasingly obsessed with the new and the now Notre Dame is a reminder that some things are timeless.
I think so. And it also highlights the challenges of preserving the past in a rapidly changing world. How do we balance tradition with innovation? How do we respect history while also embracing the future?
Tough questions, man.
They are.
Yeah.
And I don't think there are any easy answers.
Yeah.
But I do think that Notre Dame is a powerful symbol of our collective struggle to reconcile the past with the present, to find meaning and purpose in a world that's constantly evolving.
All right, so Notre Dame is this giant symbol of humanity's struggle with the past and the present. But let's cut the philosophical crap for a second and get back to the nitty-gritty. They spent a shitload of cash on this renovation. Was it worth it?
That's a tough one to answer. It depends on how you measure worth. If you're talking purely about the cost of materials and labor, then yeah, it was probably worth it. They used top-of-the-line materials, they hired the best craftspeople, they spared no expense.
All right. They basically threw money at the problem until it went away.
Yeah.
But what about the intangible stuff? The cultural value, the historical significance, all that jazz?
That's harder to quantify. But I think it's safe to say that Notre Dame is priceless. It's a symbol of France, a symbol of Western civilization, a symbol of human ingenuity and resilience. And its value goes far beyond its monetary worth.
Okay, so they saved a priceless treasure from turning into a pile of ash. But did they actually improve it? Or did they just slap a Band-Aid on a gaping wound?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And I don't think there's a simple answer. Some people argue that the renovations were necessary to preserve the building for future generations. Others say that they've compromised its authenticity, that it's no longer the same Notre Dame.
So it's a mixed bag. Some folks are happy, some are pissed off, and most are probably just scratching their heads wondering what the hell just happened.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And I think that's okay. Not every historical renovation is going to be universally loved. There's always going to be debate, controversy, disagreement. And that's part of what makes these projects so fascinating.
All right, it wouldn't be a true clusterfuck without a healthy dose of controversy. But let's step back for a second and look at the bigger picture. What does the whole Notre Dame saga tell us about how we view history and preservation in the 21st century?
I think it highlights the tension between tradition and innovation. We live in a world that's constantly changing, evolving, moving forward, and yet we also have this deep-seated need to hold on to the past to preserve the things that connect us to our history and our culture.
Right. It's like we're trying to drive a car with one foot on the gas and the other on the brake. We want to move forward, but we're also terrified of letting go of the past.
Exactly. And I think that's reflected in the way we approach historical preservation. We're constantly grappling with this question. How do we honor the past while also adapting to the present and preparing for the future?
Yeah. It's a tough balancing act. Too much tradition, and you end up with a museum piece frozen in time. Too much innovation, and you risk erasing history altogether. So where do we draw the line? How do we find that sweet spot between preservation and progress?
That's the challenge, isn't it? And there's no easy answer. It's a conversation that needs to happen on a case-by-case basis, taking into account the specific context of each historical site.
So there's no one-size-fits-all solution. No magic formula for preserving the past.
I'm afraid not. It's messy, it's complicated, it's often contentious. But it's a conversation that's worth having. Because the way we choose to preserve our history ultimately reflects who we are as a society.
Well said.
Yeah.
So Notre Dame is more than just a building. It's a mirror reflecting our own struggles with time memory and the relentless march of progress. And that, my friends, is something worth pondering long after the last gargoyle has been put in place and the last selfie has been snapped. This has been The Deep Dive, and we're out.